Happy Diwali, folks. Welcome to the foreign policy geopolitical roundup. Love to hate him, hate to love him. But you've got to give it to this, our Prime Minister, for enhancing our stature and our visibility globally. So, most of the times, foreign policy, he's his own worst enemy, or rather, his party is. The reason being, his actions, economic actions earlier in the first 5 years, like demonetization, were a disaster. Put us back a couple of years. It was unexplainable how for the first 5 years, even though he had committed, he refused to reverse the policy trends of the tax, the retroactive tax. Even now I am told when people are going to collect their taxes, there's all kinds of, on their money, all kinds of problems are being created by the babus. But hey, having said that, you can see he's punching way above his weight, and he's been put there essentially because of the moment, because of the geopolitical churn, and the reason because Indo-Pacific has now become one of the major major hotspots and critical to any Indo-Pacific strategy because of the geographic location and the way India straddles the Indian Ocean is India. And the second is the climate, and it was a masterstroke, in my opinion, to go and give this commitment in Glasgow. And he's got, if one, he's pulled the pressure off from the United States and John Kerry, and second is that he's got accolades all across the world, right? So what do we have here? So why is he his own worst enemy? It's because of this. Will stop public namaz, Muslim body amid clamor from right-wing groups. Is this allowing this right-wing narrative to continue? The other is obviously economic, the way he has been totally mishandled, whether it was the fuel prices, whether it's been the money out into the hands of the poor, the lockdown, all that set aside. But this was a great gift. In Diwali gift, WHO finally grants emergency use listing to Covaxin. This should have happened a lot before. Now, I don't know whether it's China opposing it in the WHO because they control the WHO, or it was just our shortcomings in India. We'll never know. But here we got this is a Y2K moment for me, as far as I am concerned. This commitment to green energy, whether it's solar, whether it is wind, whether it is the global green grid. And here you got a lot of money coming in. See, India pledges new climate crisis goal, net zero by 2070. Now or never, leaders on same page. So this has become critical, right? Experts praise India's bold net zero pledge. Most experts hail India's 2070 pledge, say it's transformative, equitable, and just. And this is why it's important. US $100 billion a year in climate aid for developing nations is within reach. And why we are up there is because 4 people got themselves kicked out. One is Xi, one is Putin, one is Erdogan, and one is the Brazilian fellow. I'm not sure why, right? Modi, Boris float global solar grid plan on COP26 sidelines. An important initiative. After India's 5-point plan, countries pledge to cut methane deforestation, and India PM EU leaders talk trade COVID-19. Here they are singing on the same page, and that's important. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday met top leadership of the European Union to expand cooperation on a slew of issues of common interest, including trade, climate change, global pandemic, besides Afghanistan issues. PM pitches India as partner for G20 economic revival, a big step. Modi invites Pope to India as they talk vaccine role, climate change. A big important, though he may have made this for Goa, but this is a big step, right? Need to be an NSG to quit coal power India at G20. Important statement, right? In a bold move, India on Sunday said that achieving its climate goals may be linked to issues like its membership to the nuclear suppliers group, held up due to China's opposition, and availability of technology as it sought to push for the inclusion of differentiated responsibilities that developed West to fulfill its commitment. So this is the important statement he made. India, UK talk hydrogen, clean tech, a lot of technology and money that's going to flow into India for sure. One sun, one world. Modi calls for global solar grid at COP26. Hate to love him, love to hate him. But India is in the right spot if he doesn't keep taking 2 steps back because of domestic politics and domestic incompetent economic policies. We just might catch the wind behind our sails. So folks, how is this is, like I said, a Y2K moment for India. And here's this Rajiv Bhatia writes, why G20 will acquire greater salience in Indian foreign policy. Says G20 noted that post-pandemic economic recovery was moving at a solid pace, but it was highly divergent across and within countries. The major economies committed to sustain the recovery and avoid any premature withdrawal. Two, the top priority on the health front is assigned to ensuring timely, equitable, and universal access to vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics, critical for India and India's participation. Three, with health security in the future being a significant concern, stress was laid on pandemic preparedness and response PPR so that world could handle future pandemics better. Four, on the interlinked themes of energy and climate, the leaders resolved to work for the success of the Glasgow conference by reaffirming the commitment to the full implementation of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement. Okay. Five, on the financing needs of developing countries, this is important for India. The IMF will establish a new resilience and sustainability trust which will provide affordable long-term assistance to low-income countries. The Indian delegation led by PM Modi, you got to hear this, played a significant, probably defining role, especially in the absence of top Eurasian leaders. The imprint of India's contribution was visible in formulation relating to health, climate, energy, agriculture, international taxation, anti-corruption and counter-terrorism measures. Modi's polar sides and bilateral meetings with key participants helped. Now, this is the important part, right? Punching way above our weight. With India's startup sector blooming, such innovations could well come from India before they are readied by the West. The next three nations to hold the G20 presidency are Indonesia, India and Brazil. From December 1st, the new G20 Troika will comprise Italy, Indonesia and India. G20 will now acquire greater salience in India's foreign policy. It is natural transition to India sharpening its economic diplomacy and showcasing its leadership role in the world affairs. Now, also the other play that was made was for the small islands, which is where India needs to counter China, the West needs to counter, and I think this was a masterstroke. Amid climate threats to small islands, India and UK launch resilient infra drive. India reaches out to island states at COP26. PM launches infra disaster relief. Because no one's an island. Plan to help small island states cope with climate threat bodes well for all coastal regions. Modi to launch key India-led initiative to boost infra in small island nations is also going to help India's economy, because a lot of the production may come from India, funds from the West, especially the United Kingdom. ISRO data window in India-led plan to boost infra in island nations. This is the other important one. ISRO will create a special data window for small island nations, generating and disseminating satellite data that will help these countries to strengthen their fences against climate disasters, India said at the UN Climate Conference on Tuesday. Playing with the big boys. Hey, we got all these legs to stand on. Let's keep punching. Let's keep punching. While we play the global stage, trouble on our borders, whether it's Pakistan, especially on China, continues to heat up, and the signals are becoming crystal clear that something is not kosher. Especially, I was in Arunachal Pradesh recently and I saw a lot of air activity. Here's the thing. LAC, India must stay vigilant. It says two developments along the disputed border with China are clear portents that Beijing has no intention of working with New Delhi to ensure a speedy resolution to the military standoff in the Ladakh sector of the line of actual control. First, the Indian military has picked up ample signs that Chinese PLA has intensified patrolling and area domination activities across the contested border in Arunachal Pradesh. Second, last week China adopted a new law that strengthens the PLA's ability to work with civilians to defend the country's border. So is it time to bring Tibet into play? What do we have to say? Avoid using new law to alter border areas, India says to China. New Chinese law can affect bilateral arrangements, said India. Don't act under new border law, India tells China. And then we had more PLA activity in key sectors on the Eastern Front, and Commanders Conference holds review of security challenges. A lot of them already, but what is India doing? Indigenous Pinaka deployed at China border, more wait for longer range. India gets new destroyer, but China naval gap continues. 3 more to be delivered over the next few years. We really need to amp up our navy, right? We really get into this. We're getting into this leasing program from the United States. And you got to hear this, what Pranab Dhal Samta writes, read between the LOAC. This is very important. The India-China boundary management agreements reached in 1993 and 96 reflected a mutual desire to not escalate differences on the LOAC, thus allowing both countries to focus on their economic priorities, which we did. It now appears that China wants to move on and script a new reality based on its perception of the LOAC with India. So what happened in Ladakh last year was no aberration, but a strategy to dilute, if not end, the unstated policy of strategic ambiguity over the boundary. So for India, it's important to reassess on the lines that there is no longer about contesting one post here, one post there, but also about maintaining access to patrol disputed territories. Not doing so for long periods will allow China to erect structures and mark them out as enclaves. Beijing's proclivity to escalate matters across sectors on the LOAC indicates that it intends to push the envelope further with Delhi. Most importantly, it has politically moved on from the policy of ambiguity towards clarity on the LOAC. The problem is it wants to bring clarity through intimidation and deployment of forces, not by way of any mutually agreed demarcation exercise, which is why India will have to redouble its military and diplomatic efforts. It is politically impossible for India to allow China to set the terms of boundary settlements, and in that security predicament lies the seeds of a potentially dangerous flashpoint. India successfully test fires Agni 5 missiles. Some nations trying to seek more control in Indo-Pacific region. This is Admiral Karambir Singh. In his address to the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue 21, Singh said the reinterpretation of accepted conventions was turning the global commons into contested seas. This is talking about China. Army conducts high-altitude airborne exercises in Ladakh. New laws doesn't stop China from violating others' territory rights. Gautam Bambawale. Hear this right. Beijing has indicated that she will try to settle the boundary through force. India should prepare for more Chinese military actions and aggressions on the border. India must further strengthen its coalitions with like-minded countries, including the Quad. The new land borders law of China is merely words. Judge China by her actions and not her words. Then it says China's hypersonic missile test won't go unanswered. It says, more pertinently, China's hypersonic capability cannot go unanswered, not just by the United States, but equally by India. New Delhi must develop and test hypersonic capability, bolstering its strategic deterrent against China instead of fretting about the arms race. In stern signal to China, India tests 5,000 kilometer range Agni 5. Brings even northernmost part of China within strike envelope, folks. Cheers. While India faces the heat from China, China is facing heat from multiple fronts. And here's why I say that. US-China tensions heat up again. Concerned by China's coercive and proactive actions across Taiwan Strait, Biden says at summit. US-China confrontation over Taiwan heating up. Taiwan president confirms US troops training soldiers on island. Committed to defend Taiwan, says US officials. This is a new twist. EU lawmakers meet Taiwan PM in first official visit. And this is important because the Chinese have been trying to break up the European Union stance towards Taiwan. Not happening. EU, and there's another one that the EU and US end tariff dispute, target China's dirty steel. So China's in it again. Blinken raises Taiwan rights concerns and meet with his Chinese counterpart. Taiwan scrambles jets as Chinese Air Force enters air defense zone. Modi calls for stable global supply chain and cyber security standards, and this again is targeted towards China. Modi stresses his need for open Indo-Pacific region, target China. At East Asia meet, PM calls for free and open Indo-Pacific. As you know, ASEAN nations are still kind of sitting on the sideline. India ready to make over 5 billion COVID vaccine shots next year, says PM. And there I, Turushtai. Biden vows to stand with Southeast Asia in defending freedom of seas. Another important statement. And this can't find COVID origin unless China shares info, says US intel. And that's true. And this is why it's critical. Because NSA says weaponization of pathogens, big concern. And the biggest culprit is going to be China. ASEAN upgrades strategic ties with China, says Myanmar key. Remember, Myanmar needs to be bought on. I don't know how we're going to do it. But in China, things are not hunky-dory. Tennis star Me Too charge against retired vice premier sends shock waves across China. People are beginning to talk, right? And Chinese stuff like the batteries and everything that falls apart. Chinese arms to Dhaka fail quality and longevity test. One after the other. Yeah, Bangladesh, man. Grow up, right? Government announcement to stack up on essentials sparks concerns in China. Yahoo pulls out of China's sites challenge. So let's say this, folks. Well, we are focused on India, on China and Pakistan. China has got multiple problems of its own, like also economic, internal, Tibet, Taiwan, and India. So basically, it's like even Stevens, India's got to play its cards right, stay strong, Jai Hind.